Hey guys, this is Jessie, and I wanted to do a really quick video on a 5-minute easy way to make yourself feel better when you feel like you have maybe made a mistake or done something that you knew you shouldn't have or that you regret. I find oftentimes that these can really escalate into a lot of negative self-talk and reinforce a lot of negative self-beliefs that people have when they do something that is perhaps against their greater interest. I like to consider myself perhaps an academic of pain of sorts, so I try to use my own personal situations as a way to connect and tell stories to other people who can maybe learn from my experience. So I tend to beat myself up when I make a mistake, and the worst thing that I do is, I Google the internet. Obviously, what else would you Google? But I, always get the same, or even just in talking with people, like, look, I made this mistake, and you tend to get a lot of really, I don't want to say banal, I believe that's rude, but you get a lot of the same advice. Don't do this, or if you do this, for example, I'm talking about trying really hard not to text an ex. And it's like the more people tell me not to do it, the more your brain doesn't respond to negatives. So the more you hear, don't do something, all your brain really interprets is do this, do this, do this, and you kind of obsess about it. And I, texted someone maybe I didn't really want to text, but I felt almost a compulsion, I guess you could say, to text because my heart's broken and I'm still dealing with that, and that's the reality of life. But so I started to get so frustrated with myself, like, why can't you stop? Like, clearly this person doesn't want to talk to you. And I kept hearing the same response from people. Well, you know what they say, distance, if you just back off and you don't want to seem like the crazy girl that texts too much, and playing into all these stereotypes of women being too emotional, and being crazy. And it's like, if you can just give them space, and this is stemming from this deeper issue of self-esteem, and which may all be true, but it made me feel like shit. It just reinforces there is a problem with you, and you better stop doing this behavior, or else you're going to continue to feel bad. And so I've been practicing self-compassion in my 30 days of healing, and I'm on day 24, and I finally it clicked a little bit once I had read like my final internet article about like basically how crazy and insecure I am, and just stop doing it, and try this technique and do this distraction technique, and understand if you just had some self-respect you wouldn't do this. And it's really missing like a huge underlying issue, I think, which is the pain that is being experienced that needs to be acknowledged and needs to be healed, regardless of a lot of those more surface realities and issues. So I wanted to just offer that really quickly in the moment. If you mess up, if you make a mistake, if you do something that you feel like, why did I do that? If you start to integrate just every day for a couple minutes these 3 tenets of self-compassion, coined by Kristin Neff, which is self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. If you first take that approach and try and understand that everyone makes mistakes and it's okay, and you're not defined by your mistakes, and try and understand that, in fact, that's what makes you human, and just because you made a mistake doesn't... The more you read, you're crazy and you're insecure, and you're going to just continue to believe that. And so that isn't necessarily the most helpful advice. So I'm not saying just do whatever you want in terms of your behavior, but I believe if you first stop when you make a mistake and say, how can I take a more self-compassionate approach to this and understand that this was done in pain and I'm coming from a place of pain, that perhaps you can stop beating yourself up about it. Because from my own experience, every time I've made a mistake and then beat myself up about it, I just continue into a spiral of feeling worse and worse and worse. And that's not solving the problem either. So intellectually, we can say, well, you have low self-esteem, and so you're looking for someone else to validate you, and, et cetera, which is all things that can also be worked on in conjunction with self-compassion. But I think you have to first start by giving yourself that freedom to say, I am suffering in this moment. I am feeling pain, and it hurts. And I did this, and it's okay. And I felt immediately better, and I've never been able to experience that before. And now I'm on day 24 of implementing these self-compassion exercises, but I don't feel like the end of the world, and I don't feel like, I'm totally insecure and a horrible person for not having the discipline and the willpower, to not do something that maybe wasn't in my best interest. It happens, and I feel a lot less pressure going forward to not make the same mistake now, because I haven't really beaten myself up about it. And I wanted to share a couple other things. I'm going to try and be quick because I ramble. But I went on that, I'm not exactly sure how to say it, Quora website, Quora, that my mom showed me. And this was the only thing that made me feel better. I think because it got a little bit deeper than just, you're doing this, you made this mistake because you are, we always want to like label people and say, oh, this is a symptom of this or that. And we don't really want to get to the root of our true experiences and how our life has sort of led us to these, maybe, I don't even want to say neuroses, because it's negative. It's just the human experience, right? We all make mistakes. So I found this really great answer to this question on how do because I literally was at a point where I was I feel like I can't control myself. I can't, I don't even want to be with this person anymore, but it's the rejection, and it's just, I can't seem to stop myself. So this article suggested, I'll read it and link it. It says to bring awareness to the feeling down part. Instead of the quick fix of messaging someone who compliments you, or maybe they don't compliment you, in my case, they don't, but instead of escaping from the pain, stick with it, right? So that's one of the first important tenets. You have to just feel that pain. And then here was a really legitimate exercise that I did in that moment, and I felt better, coupled with self-compassion exercises, or just bringing self-compassion to myself. And the user said, use this sentence completion technique. Okay, so if anyone is struggling with, they just made a mistake and they feel really bad about it and they're spiraling downward, try to do this, right? Look up self-compassion, try to do an exercise, try to understand that, and then do this. It says, use this sentence completion technique. Right now, without thinking too much, what is the first thought that comes to you when you read this? And fill in the blank. So the quote is, if I think about why I'm feeling down, I would see that blank. Just take a moment, look away from the screen, and complete the sentence with the first spontaneous thought. Do this fill in the blank completion mentally 3 times in succession. And, the overall goal is to address the insights that arise. Which that happened to help me because more than put your phone down. And, there's a lot of shit on the internet that they tell you to do that will just make you feel really shitty about yourself. And I want to just say that people make mistakes, and you don't have to feed into the rhetoric that they tell you experience or excuse me, the rhetoric that they spout on the internet about who you are, or in real life, because, you know, it's the same advice I get from friends and coworkers, and, oh, you know, just if as soon as you stop texting them, or as soon as you leave them alone, and it's not about that. Like, when people go through heartbreak, when people are in pain, when people are in suffering, clearly it's not that easy to just make these rational decisions, right? So feeling even worse for not being able to make these decisions is not a helpful solution either. So I'm curious about really looking at ways to make great, looking at ways to really help people and not feel bad about themselves. Because when you approach a problem feeling bad about yourself, you're already going into it saying, like, well, I'm defective, I'm this and I'm that. And I'm not saying that you should just blow up your ex's phone and you should just do whatever you want, but I'm saying that we can put our behavior into a different context first to try and understand it, and then we can try and evolve and really utilize, cultivate self-love, and then try and solve a lot of the problems. And so my cat wants to say hi. Say hi, Lily. And love yourself, right? She used self-compassion, huh? But even if you don't do that exercise that I just mentioned, that's an addition. If you can just look up self-compassion, and in the moment that you make a mistake or do something, take a breath. Just take a breath and be kind to yourself. And be mindful and recognize that it doesn't make you anything other than a human to make a mistake. And that's not excusing behavior. That's just accepting it. And then you can move forward and try to address the kind of person you want to be. So I'll just end with this Purple Buddha Project quote, which, if you don't know about the Purple Buddha Project, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's a great Tumblr. The quote is, maybe you lost someone you never expected you would lose. Maybe you lost yourself. That's even worse. When you have bad days that just won't let up, I just hope that you will look in the mirror and remind yourself of what you are and what you are not. You are not your mistakes. You are not damaged goods or muddy from your failed explorations. You are not the opinion of someone who doesn't know you. You are a product of the lessons that you've learned. You are wiser because you went through something terrible. And you are the person who survived a bunch of rainstorms and kept walking. I now believe that pain makes you stronger. And I now believe that walking through a lot of rainstorms gets you clean. So if you make a mistake, it's okay. It's part of being a human, and you don't have to beat yourself up for it, okay? I'm here, and I make mistakes all the time, and it is a learning process. And fast forward a year, and if we won't laugh about it, hey, maybe we'll still cry about it. Who knows? But self-compassion, taking just 30 seconds out of your day, will help you. I guarantee it's been one of the only things that, through a 5 minutes a day, a consistent practice. I'm on day 24. You can do it anywhere, in your car, on the way to work, on a break. You can do it just in your mind, but just try to practice self-compassion every day for 5 minutes. And especially in a crisis, especially after you've made a mistake, you will feel better. And you will be clearer, and you will be able to look at your problems and your mistakes more objectively. And so that's all for today, and I hope everyone is doing well, and I hope you get the rest and love you need, and I'm sending you love and light. So Thank you.